Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Good news. Supreme Court PM entitled to suspend Parliament, judges told. And this is from the BBC just a couple of hours ago. So there has been a lot of kerfuffle from Gina Miller over Boris Johnson deciding to prorogue Parliament. It is often the case, if not always the case, that when a new Prime Minister comes in, then there needs to be a Queen's speech. Obviously there hasn't been one yet, so it makes sense for there to be one now. They've had the longest session of Parliament since the Civil War, wasn't it? Was it the 18th century? And therefore, it makes sense, again, to prorogue Parliament. The idea being that it is about time and a break is required for both those reasons. However, there are thoughts that Boris Johnson has, of course, done it because he's trying to push through Brexit, maybe even a no-deal Brexit, which Gina Miller doesn't like, because Gina Miller obviously has a vision of the United, and therefore she is trying to stop it, taking it to any court that will hear her plea, and now it's got to the Supreme Court. England said no, Scotland said yes, Supreme Court saying no. It's basically that simple. People who are saying it's undemocratic, of course. Boris Johnson has said twice, well, okay, how about we have a general election? No. Let's have one again. No. Okay, well, if you're that sure, then surely you would have taken the opportunity then, if you cared that much for democracy, or maybe you were going to allow the will of the people from the very beginning, which was, of course, voting to leave, and now that seems to be wanting to be overturned. In fact, Swinson, of course, leader of the Liberal Democrats, is saying, well, okay, if they get elected into power, they're not even going to have a second referendum anymore. They've turned even more into just say, no, we're going to stay in the EU no matter what. Of course, funny thing, even if we do stay in the EU, there's no chance that we'll be able to continue as before, as bad as that was. It's going to be worse. The EU obviously won't take kindly to us being in that position, and therefore, because new people will be coming in trying to say that we should stay there, the EU would demand more from us. There is absolutely no chance that they would work with us. Verhofstadt, of course, speaking with the Liberal Democrats at their recent conference. But let's read on to this good news. So the PM is entitled to suspend Parliament even if it is for political reasons, the Supreme Court has heard. Yes, but the so-called political reasons would all be in Boris's head. So now you're trying to be the thought police, but then again, I suppose that's nothing new for people like Gina Miller. A Scottish court ruled the 5-week suspension was unlawful, but Lord Queen, QC, for the government, said the decision was not one for the courts. The Supreme Court is hearing 2 appeals relating to the decision by Boris Johnson to prorogue Parliament. Lord Panic, QC, for campaigners against the move, said it was done to silence MPs in the run to Brexit. He was representing an appeal brought by businesswoman and campaigner Gina Miller against a contradictory English High Court ruling that, unlike the judgment in Scotland, said the suspension was purely political and therefore not a matter for the judiciary. Cool. Can we enter there? Either way, even if you don't prorogue Parliament, chances are that Brexit's still going to go ahead. Thank God. And it's similar to what the Democrats are trying to do in America. They've basically given up on being able to beat Trump lawfully in 2020, and so they're thinking, well, now we've got to move to impeach. That's the only chance we got. Similarly, of course, with Brett Kavanaugh, that they're saying, yes, well, we'll recant a load of old stories which have been proven to be false in order to try and get him removed, and we're gonna bring up all sorts of rape accusations, even though they're unproven or provably false, and try and just smear his name through that, which is tantamount to evil as far as I'm concerned. So, Mr Johnson maintains it was right and proper to terminate the last session of Parliament to pave the way for a Queen's speech to outline the government's legislative plans for the year ahead. He insisted the move had nothing to do with Brexit, and his do-or-die pledge to take the UK out of the EU on Halloween with or without a deal. Lady Hale, President of the Supreme Court, stressed the outcome of the 2 appeals would have no bearing on the timing of Brexit. Cool. In her opening statement, the most senior judge in the UK said she and her 10 colleagues would endeavour to address the serious and difficult questions of law, but would not determine wider political questions relating to the Brexit process. Of course, it's already been the case that you can't leave by Halloween now. Have to be the end of January, unless a deal is passed before then. But of course, the EU is going to be trying to get more and more from us in the meantime. Last week, Edinburgh's Court of Session. Oh, and of course, they're going to be fraternising with the traitors, as in the treasonous traitors. Last week, Edinburgh's Court of Session found in favour of a cross-party group of politicians challenging the PM's move, ruling the shutdown was unlawful and of no effect. Well, why didn't we get Scotland to leave then? Their cost per person is 10.3% higher than the UK, so they can bugger off. It's just over £2,000, 2,200 is it? Net cost per person. So yeah, they can leave, and this isn't a vote to try and keep them in like the last one was. It's a vote to push them out. In which case, Scotland doesn't need to vote, because if you're trying to keep somebody against their will, then they have a choice to say, well, actually, we want to stay. But if you're trying to get rid of somebody, then why are you giving them a choice to stay? So, Scotland's High Civil Court, not that it matters, found Mr Johnson had effectively misled the Queen in the sovereign's exercise of prerogative powers. Yeah, good fucking luck with that. You really think you can pull the wool over the Queen's eyes? I don't. SNP MP Joanna Cherry. I just want a Cherry Curry now. Who was also one of the lawyers on the case, told the BBC she was cautiously optimistic the Supreme Court would uphold the Scottish Court's ruling, but she added if they don't, then they will be accepting that it's possible under the British Constitution for the Prime Minister of a minority government to shut down Parliament if it's getting in its way, and this just can't be right. Not shutting down Parliament, they're not silenced, they can talk to whoever they want. Let's just read on, shall we? Moving on. Lord Panic said the effect of the suspension was to take Parliament out of the game at a pivotal moment in the UK's history. Had 3 years, and he disagreed with the High Court's judgment that the issue was outside the scope of the courts. The answer is either yes or it is no, but it is an issue of law. And the rule of law demands the court answers it, and not say it is not for us, and it is for the discretion of the Prime Minister. They have their own analysis. They have even more analysis, but who cares for the BBC at all? So let's finish off. Elsewhere on Tuesday, the Prime Minister discussed Brexit in a phone call with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The sooner she leaves, the better. Look at all her socialist tendencies. Number 10 said afterwards, the Prime Minister reiterated that the UK and the EU have agreed to accelerate efforts to reach a deal without the backstop, which the UK Parliament could support, and that we could work with energy and determination to achieve this ahead of Brexit on Halloween. Well, hey, at least that's some sort of deal. Why not? Why not? Of course, they're just wanting their 39 billion, and how about we take our money out of the European Bank? Wouldn't that be good? Then try and balance your budgets. How's that going to work? But as has been the case for quite a long time, and why the older people decided to vote to leave, it's because it's not something that they voted to join, and because they have been misled since then. They go, well, hey, you're not following the rules, so let's leave. And as far as I'm concerned, the EU is essentially the Fourth Reich. It is Germany trying to take over Europe by other means. They say politics is war by other means, and that is essentially, effectively, exactly what is happening here. But as always, let me know what you guys think. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.